All right, we're live.
All right, here we are after a pretty good long break. It feels kind of good to get back in the saddle here. Yeah, it's been a minute, but we're very excited to have with us our guest tonight, Mr. Spike Wright, long-term county attorney of Gallatin County. We won't hold you to the fire too much, but I got to tell you, we are a little bit excited. We don't have a sitting political office holder here, so you got no inhibitions. You can tell all tonight. But Spike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, well, I guess if you want to take just a quick little 2 minutes here and give the folks a brief rundown in your own words of your history in Gallatin County, how you got started, your time as county attorney, and just how all that came to be and where you're at now.
Okay. Well, I stopped being the county attorney in the end of 2022. So I've been 3 years trying to figure out retiring. I've been walking at the YMCA with your dad. And he made fun of me and said, because I go to court and cover cases and do things. He says, "Man, you suck at retirement."
He does too.
Well, as I was saying, he took a job that he gets paid nothing for. And I said, "You think I suck? I just get paid." You know? But I grew up here. I graduated from high school here in 1979. My father was the county attorney for 20 or 25 years, from like 1961 or so up into the 80s. I went off to school. I worked for the circuit judge for a year after law school, and his advice to me was, why wouldn't you go back to the place where you know all the ladies' names in the courthouse and grow up? He said he had grown up with Florence. I swear he told me that there were 300 people in Florence when he started, and it really grew up. You know, I came here back in 1986 is when I graduated from law school, and so for 86 to 87 I worked for the judge, and then I ran for city council. I served a term on city council, and I ran for county attorney and lost to Mr. Huddleston, and he served for 3 or 4 terms, 4-year terms, and then I was elected, and I went in January of 2003, and I was elected 5 times. Very fortunate, very happy to have served. Decided not to do it, mostly because it was getting to be more of a strain. I was having some health issues, and I just thought from a health standpoint it was a good idea to, if you don't have to do it, don't do it. But anyway, I since that time I have been volunteered because people ask me to do things, and I have a hard time saying no. So I serve on the library board, I serve on the airport board, I've been asked to serve on the hospital board in Carrollton. I'm active in my church at the Warsaw Christian Church, and I'm active in politics. I like to stay interested, and I pay attention, so glad to be here.
I think that is kind of a prelude and a brief summary for a really good conversation that I'm looking forward to, because there's such a history there. And you just kind of said something that a lot of people might not know. You grew up around Gallatin County politics with your dad being county attorney. So, I mean, you've seen all this, what'd you say, since the 60s?
I was born in 61. So.
Yeah. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about, is a little bit more just kind of small talk before we really get into the weeds on all this. But you'd talk a little bit about the evolution of the parties in Gallatin County. And, you know, even when we were young, myself personally, I asked somebody, well, how should I register? Well, you have to register Democrat in Gallatin County, or else you'll never have a vote. So you've seen a real evolution, because it's not that way today currently.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I think clearly in the last few years, and more so in the last election, it's clearly a Republican-dominant county. The registrations will tell you that.
Yeah, that just recently happened, didn't it? Where they there's more registered Republicans in the county now than there was.
Do you feel
Democrats.
like people have changed?
No. What I was going to say is I think the community is very conservative, and I think the Democratic leadership in the 60s and 70s were conservative. I know your uncle Clarence was the judge from my dad was the county attorney and Clarence was the county judge. And I don't know that you really came any more conservative fiscally or financially than Clarence was. Dale Samuel, who's a long-term Republican and ran against Judge Zubeidi back in 2002, I guess it was. I might be wrong on that. But anyway, Dale told me that he always admired Clarence's fiscal policies, Don't raise taxes and keep the expenditures down, keep the expenses down.
But we are talking about a Democrat.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, but the people, you asked if the people changed. No, I think the people are, very conservative. I think most people are conservative about their money. You don't spend more than you take in. Credit cards are the devil. That in the home, and the same thing on the government side too. So, story. I remember as a kid, Dad sitting at the supper table talking about Clarence, and there was a project where I think on Little Sugar, one of the water table bridges had washed out. And if you did it with state money, you had to get, architectural drawings and engineering design and use all of this type of material. And they were going to give you the money, but it was going to cost over $100,000 to build this bridge. And Dad said Clarence wouldn't do that. He said, I don't want your money. And he went out there. I'm not sure he didn't do it, but he got down in the creek with a bulldozer and they cleaned out the rock and came back in and laid big culverts, 2 or 3 of them, put rock in on around it, and then covered it with concrete. And I'm not sure it's not still there. And it cost about $10,000.
Yeah.
But
that was Clarence's approach.
But so that you could dive into a huge conversation on that one. Would that even be legal in today's world?
Well,
Blue line waterway. I mean, how much trouble do you get in for doing that in today's?
The division of water. If you disturb a blue line stream,
There's always the approach that it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
I think Clarence was a big believer in that too. I don't know the answer to that.
Plenty of room in the budget for legal fees if we save 90%.
Well, you got to realize though, the county judge is the county judge, and those people have to come to the counties and ask for support on certain things too. So I was always amazed by Clarence got things done.
Yeah.
Whether it was legal or not, sure, it was legal.
It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that was your dad's job, wasn't it, to figure out how it was legal for whatever he did?
Well, there's some who would question whether
Is his job to prove legality or prove illegality?
that was to get that forgiveness.
Well, on that same train of thought, I heard an interesting statistic the other day, and it kind of encompasses what we're talking about here with the county. We're a relatively conservative state, heavily labeled Republican at this point. We've had a Democratic governor like 47 of the past 55 years. That's kind of unbelievable. Of all the people we've talked to thus far, you've got the most experience on the Democrat side. What would you attribute that to?
Well, I think there is that everybody's registered a Democrat. So there's that the Republicans would have had to have overcome. I think the variances between the Republican candidates and the Democratic candidates probably weren't as wide as they have become. The national party for the Democrats is, you've heard a number of people who've said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, they left me.
Yeah.
And, I said on Facebook just a couple days ago, because I had worn my Proud Democrat shirt, they made a negative comment about that. But I've considered myself and my family have always been Harry Truman Democrats. And I think Harry Truman was as conservative a guy as you could. He dropped the atomic bomb. I don't think there's a lot of liberal left-wing people that think that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I think he looked at it, made the decision, and he lived it, and that was the way it was. But the 3 governors in my lifetime, the Republicans would be Louis Nunn in 1968. Ernie Fletcher came along, and that would have been, what, about 2006 or 7. And then Matt Bevin. But I think, I mean, Andy Bashir, and I like Andy Bashir, but I think he was more of the benefited from. I don't think Matt Bevin was a good candidate at that time, and I think even Republicans, people who are now Republicans, and I worked the polls for the last 5 or 6, 7 elections, and there's a lot of people go in and just pull the Republican button. It used to be they'd go in and pull the Democratic, the rooster tail, you know. But I think there's enough people who didn't vote for Matt Bevin, and there was only one other real choice, so they chose Bashir. And I think for the most part, I mean, he's fairly conservative compared to the liberal coast.
It seemed to me like Bevin couldn't get out of his own way in that race. I mean,
I sometimes
he made some
wonder,
statements that really just really hurt him.
Well, I mean, on the way out the door, he pardoned what 300 or 400 people, murderers, and you know, I think one who's already killed somebody else, and you know, so I mean, once Chick Fritch, one of the greatest Democratic campaigners I ever saw, he told me, and I believe this, that if you want to be in politics, you run harder the day after the election than you did the day before. Because people know, if you only go to church for the 6 weeks leading up to the election and then you stop, they notice that. Mm-hmm. They don't forget that.
Yeah.
And I think Bevin, he burned all his bridges on the way out the door, which to me means not much of a politician. He came, he got what he wanted, and he left.
Yeah.
He was terribly politically incorrect, and just the teachers were a big one that got him beat.
That's what beat him.
And there probably still is issues with their pension system.
Right.
But he went about it in the complete wrong way. I mean, it needs to be addressed, but when you tell people teachers get paid too much, you know, they work too little and they shouldn't get a pension, was pretty much what he said. Right. You're not going to get any votes for that.
Well, I think there's been a systematic attack on public schools, teachers, and the schools, and the funding for schools. But I think it wasn't just the teachers, though. I think there was, if you remember, there was talk about a bridge or fixing the bridge in I-75 in Kenton County. And Kenton County was solidly Republican by that time, and it voted for Bashir. And the way I understand it is that, you know, Bevin was pro-toll on the bridge that needed to be fixed or repaired, and the people in Kenton County did not want a toll on the bridge.
That's interesting.
And there was only, I don't think that the difference between the election, you know, the total votes, I think if you looked at the Kenton County vote just by itself, there was enough. If you'd have taken it and given the majority to Bevin, he would have won that.
Northern Kentucky is normally Republican or conservative vote normally.
Very.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, but it has been Democratic. You know, Kenton County was strong Democrat. Boone
Well,
County,
at least recently, normally.
But even though they were Democratic state-wise, they were Republican on the national level. Gene Snyder was a Republican. We've only had a Democratic congressman from this district for 2 years in my lifetime.
Really?
And that would have been Ken Lucas from Boone County, and he's a very conservative businessman, Democrat. So.
On the topic of a bridge, though, being a toll bridge, I'm not sure that I'm opposed to that. I kind of like the idea of pay for services received. Which is pretty much what a toll is. I mean, you know, if you don't use it, you don't pay for it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that means, though.
What's that?
You're not going to get elected for governor.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's...
Well, that's probably because a lot of the people in Kenton County are the ones that use the bridge,
Right.
so they would be paying more than those of us that don't use it very much.
Yeah.
See, that's the politics of it. Is it may have been the right answer.
They might not be as conservative as they think they are.
They didn't want to hear that. No.
Well, and that was the same deal with the teacher pension thing. I mean, there's an issue there.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to be addressed. The guy wasn't totally wrong. He was incredibly non-political about how he went about it.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Well, speaking of bridges and logistics and such, what can you tell us? We've got this airport thing, and the logistics thing made me think about it because in one of our recent shows, I think we discussed the train of thought that logistics has played a huge role in development of communities, towns, cities, hubs, whatever. You look at river, cities all up and down the river, big ones, small ones, rail, train. Now we've got airports are coming, interstates have been big for the past 50 years. So logistically, an airport could be a big thing. It could be a big deal. You serve on the airport board. What do we, I don't know, what's our most pressing topics here that we think all of the people want to hear about on there?
First off, where do you see the airport going? What's the big idea of the airport?
Well, let me tell you what's going on at the airport and where we are, and then, because I mean, predicting the future. I mean, if I could predict the future, I'd be at Vegas winning lots of money. But where we are is, back in the late '80s, there was a concept of having a regional airport in this area. If you looked at the map of the airports in Kentucky, put them up on a map, put little red stars, there was a hole in what we call the Golden Triangle. You know, you go from CVG in Boone County to Louisville, and then there's an airport in Frankfort, and there's an airport in Georgetown, and an airport in Lexington. But all those area in between is not served by what they call a general aviation or GA airport. So a smaller airport, not a 747 airport. And so the FAA, so it was a federal thought, they have wanted an airport in this area to, they call it like a pressure valve for CVG. CVG is a big airport. It's an international airport. It has all the big planes and a number of different runways laid out. And this location where we are is like the perfect location. The reason it's the perfect location is because there is a circle around CVG where you can't have an airport. And that circle extends right to the Sparta exit. So this is just beyond.
Makes sense.
It also is perfect in the standpoint because in the beginning, Owen and Carroll and Gallatin had a committee to try to find locations, and there were 2 or 3 locations. One, I believe, out. You remember where the old golf course was out on
Walnut Valley.
On Walnut Valley, out in that area. And I know that was discussed because my brother had just bought a house, and the neighborhood out there was all up in arms because they didn't want an airport in their quiet neighborhood. There was also discussion about one up on the hill up above Sparta in Owen County. But the location that was selected was this one that's Park Ridge Road. I mean, practically on Park Ridge Road. And in large part because it runs parallel to I-71, and that's the wind. So you take off into the wind and you land into the wind, and the wind generally comes from the west.
Yeah, the runways have to be east and west. Right.
And more important is the decibels on I-71. If they set up a machine that measures the noise, it's already like at a 70.
Yeah.
And when a plane takes off, it's like a 90 or 100. And then it goes up and comes down. But it's already at 70.
I'm sure that same logic will go on to a different area of conversation with the data centers
Yeah.
later. But
Right.
I'll carry on with your
Right. Okay. So
Somebody might have touched on that before already.
So the federal government and the state government have pushed, and have financially supported this. I think it's a mistake when people say, well, there's no taxpayer money going into it. It's all taxpayer money.
Yeah.
It's just not local taxpayer money. And that's what the people who run for county judge are, we're not spending not one penny of taxpayer money on it. Well, it's okay as long as it's coming from somewhere.
Well, that's what they originally said.
Yeah, well, I think it's true.
Does that still hold true that there was no county money spent out there?
Well, the answer to that's no. But that money that's spent up until the groundbreaking, when Matt Bevin came here and there was a groundbreaking, no local taxpayer money had been spent on it. They bought about $180 tray of donuts and confections or whatever, and I think the county paid for that. So for a long time, in my mind, that was the only money that the county had spent to get a $30 million airport. So now since then, let's be realistic. It has to be mowed. There's an electric.
Those are my biggest concerns. Or what is the cost to own it and operate it once it's up? Once everything's done, once it's up, up and running. I mean, does it? If you have an airport that's getting much traffic, do you have to have a fire truck out there? You don't.
No.
Okay.
No, you want to have one handy, but
Yeah, there's going to be water. There's going to be sufficient water out there, I do believe. It's
Okay.
not going to be a hydrant.
well, but see, money's got to come from somewhere to pay for all that.
No, that's already in the works, and I think that's
Right.
other grants too.
It is. It
Okay.
is.
What about like snow removal? Is that something that's
Well, where we are on that, okay, is there are two major things that are going on right now. And fiscal court will talk about them, I think, tomorrow night at the meeting. One is who's going to run the airport.
right? And I'm not, I'm not looking for a specific number on snow removal. I just mean, what does it entail to run the airport, and what are those costs, and what do we expect it's going to generate? I mean, are they going to offset each other? I mean, is it?
Spike, you can help me on this, but from other board members that I've talked to, the biggest thing with, I guess, making sure everything's up to code and everything's done right out there now is if you pass inspection, you qualify to get money from fuel tax, like all the airports in Kentucky. A percentage of that goes back to general aviation airports.
Similar to what we've learned about the mineral tax.
Yeah,
How
so
all this big pot from the whole entire state, every coal mine, every oil.
So you
Right.
think that those monies are going to fully fund?
Well,
The airport.
right now, it's, I think, 219,000 or so is what the count, what the airport got this year from that tax. That as long as we
I don't know,
stay in
it's 200
compliance.
and something in the teens.
I think it was 200, went up to 220-ish.
Correct. We've had surplus, so two things. There's federal money that we get every year. It's $150,000 a year as long as we have 10 airplanes that claim our airport as their home base.
Is that why the hangar they built houses 10 planes?
Well, they gave us the money to build it.
Yeah.
So we built it, and the income on that is roughly about $3,000 a month. We discussed this morning, 8 of the 10 planes have already changed their registration, their tail number,
Okay,
and, we need to get those other 2 to
Right.
get on
that
board.
makes
It would
sense.
make sense to waive the 3,000
I
fee to get to
I
150,000.
mean, surely, I mean,
We
that,
want both.
yeah.
But
I would think you
can
want
only,
both, yeah.
You can only use that 150,000. They call it entitlement money,
Yeah.
FAA, federal money. The state now, the legislative money was 200,000, and then this year they came up with 217 or 219,000. Now, also, I told you the big question is who's going to run the airport? There's a fixed base operator, or do we hire an employee? If we hire an employee, who's going to pay that employee? Do we have enough income?
That's the main reason
That's
why I was wondering what the costs are to run it, because we had heard a lot about, that they're trying to decide if they're going to have the fixed base operator
Well,
run it. And I'm like, well, how do you even determine that if you don't know what it takes or what it's going to cost to run it and what it's going to generate?
well, you don't know what we're expecting that person or that company to do either. Do we
Yeah.
expect them to do the mowing? We used our first 200,000, big chunk of it was used to buy a large mower, which has got a bat wing on it and can mow a lot of territory quickly.
There's more property out there than just
Right. See,
10 feet off the
You're
strip.
right. There's hundreds of acres out there to be developed, and so. Do we want the fixed-based operator or the manager to become involved in economic development? Because we don't. We want them to. We had a gentleman this morning who was on Zoom talking to us. He wants to build 2 additional 10-unit hangars with private money, and so that now we have 30. And so the money that the airport generates in part is from the rent, but also from the fuel sales, because we do have fuel. We have fuel, what I call regular, then they have Jet A fuel. The Jet A obviously is more expensive and has a bigger profit margin, so we'd love to sell that. And our airport's 5,000 feet long, so it's not big jets, but there are corporate jets. And we've had 2, Bobby Searcy being one of them, and a doctor from up in Boone County who want to build private corporate hangars, which would be 119 feet by 100 feet. If it was 120 by 100, it would be at 12,000 square feet, and that's when we'd have to have fire suppression, which would require an additional water supply that we do
Yeah,
not
they,
have.
they don't have the
yet.
infrastructure for that, right?
We don't. We're working on it. Now, your grandfather, Vic Satchel, and the water department are there on a regular basis. Because initially, there's an 8 or a 10-inch line on the other side of the interstate, but to run that under the interstate would cost in the ballpark of $1 million. You know, so as is, there are water lines already on the south side of the interstate, and they can bring those tapping in.
This is completely off topic, but who owns that line? Is that Gallatin Water or Carroll?
Well, Gallatin would be that.
Yeah.
Isn't there some deal with Gallatin and Carroll County
Yeah.
Water over
Well,
there?
there's been a bloody knuckle dispute over Uncle Clarence back in the day to get water to the area when the speedway was coming, and the county. I don't know whether there was a county water department even at that time or what, but a deal was struck with Carroll Water, Carroll Utilities, and they were going to they ran a water line, but they only ran a 4-inch line. Back during my time as county attorney, Mr. Huddleston actually represented the Gallatin Water, and Gallatin Water was coming across Speedway Boulevard or out in that property with I believe, a 10-inch line coming to Love's, because Love's has the same fire suppression issues, and we knew that Carroll Utilities only had a 4-inch line, and they said we can't get you an 8-inch or a 10-inch line. We only have a 4-inch line. Well, then they decided. Of course, I'm giving you the Gallatin perspective, but they decided that they didn't want to give up that interchange in Love's, so they started running their 8-inch line. So there's a race with these two water lines, and so a lawsuit was filed and injunctions, and everybody had to stop because Carroll was going to come to the property line and expand the 4-inch into an 8-inch line and say, "Hey, we got you an 8-inch line. We did what you asked." You know,
But it's still
It
only
just
a 4
happens to be 4 back then.
feeding the 8.
yeah. So I don't know. It's real good pressure, but we met the 2 + 2 equals. You have to buy water from us.
As soon as they got the deal, we'll get to replacing that 4-inch, at some point.
So there was litigation
That's
over that,
interesting.
and that got resolved. So at this point, we're dealing with Gallatin Water, and Gallatin.
That did get resolved, so it's Gallatin.
It's
that's-
resolved. I
Okay.
don't know that everybody was happy, but it needed to be resolved, and it's resolved. But back
Okay.
to the thing is so we have corporate people wanting to build big hangars, and we have had a number of businesses come to our meetings wanting to talk about flight schools, talk about airline or airplane maintenance. Apparently, there's a business where you can get your plane painted, detailed or what, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of all these things as long as the county doesn't get stuck holding a bill for, whatever.
Yeah. So on that, just dollars and cents, I'm trying to wrap my mind around all this. Talk about $3,000 a month per plane rent, correct?
No, total.
No, that's for the whole hangar.
I think our rent is $275. It may be $300 a month.
Okay.
Times
Okay.
10 would be
Okay.
$3,000.
3,000. Okay. All right.
And we
And-
sold $5,000 worth of gas last month.
How much of that was the price of buying said gas?
It's gross. So there's
Figure
it's-
$1,000 of that's
Yeah.
profit,
Profit.
maybe.
I don't know what your markup. We
20%
debate or
margin on
discuss
fuel is
it.
probably pretty
What,
good.
here's
That'd be
the
really good.
interesting-
Probably, yeah, you're probably right. That may be
We
a little
bought
high.
our first gas. Actually, it was a debate about who was going to buy the gas, whether the county was going to buy it. I believe we used that, the money that we got legislatively or from, we can't use the FAA money. That's been designated. And we actually borrowed 2 or 3 future years from other airports. This is how they do it. So, say Georgetown said, we don't want our 150 this year, let Gallatin have it. And then we had to pay that back, and that's all been paid back already. But the income from the gas, that's what I was telling you, is that we had to buy this gas, and we bought it at whatever that price was. And then we weren't selling anything, and we were panicking because if you don't turn it over, you got to refresh it or you got to do something to it. And so about the time we were going to have to do something, there was a war broke out in Iran, and the fuel prices went through the roof.
Yeah.
And so our gas at that time was the cheapest gas, and people were coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any trouble getting the gas. And we sold $18,000 worth of gas that month. But now we're back in competition. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out here. So the $3,000 a month is $36,000 a year,
Okay.
For the 10 plane hangar.
and then you got $150,000 federal FAA money,
Mhm.
assuming you have 10 planes that call here home.
Right. And that's for capital. That's capital expenditures, not for running the airport. That's for building hangars, building the.
The 150 is.
Yes.
But it's every year.
Yes. As long as we have at least 10.
The 200,000, 200, 220, to whatever fuel tax money, right?
Well, that's
State-
we call it legislative.
legislative,
I didn't really know where that came from,
But
there-
that's annual operating money?
I don't know how dependable that is because, like 3 years ago, the airport grand opening was like 3 years ago. And I don't think the state was giving us, they were giving us money through grants and through the Kentucky Department of Aviation. But this legislative money has been the last 2 years. So we'd like to depend on it, but I don't think that's a good business move.
Well, does anybody have an estimate as to what it's going to take to run the place year in, year out?
Again, it depends on what we're asking. You're talking about if Gallatin County just did it.
Yeah.
If they don't do the FBO thing, if the county just keeps it, runs it,
Well,
what are we looking at?
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't think anybody at this point really does, because nobody's ever really sat down and done that. We have limped along for 3 years with the county road department will go out there and mow. So is the county out money paying those employees? Yes. So is the county spending money on that? Yes. How much? I don't know. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
We're getting by, but one of the lights went out, and those lights are expensive. to
Did they
replace.
do snow removal out there this
They did
past
not.
year?
I'm sorry, I should have answered. It snowed and we were shut down. They have notifications and
Okay. Yeah, I
And it was
didn't know
only
how
for
that worked for
4 or
like an
5
airport
days,
like
but-
that. If that was, if a big airport, is about the only ones I'm familiar with, and
right.
obviously they can't have any ice on the runway. They can't wait for it to snow. They've got to have it, everything. Make sure there's nothing that does get on the runway.
Is
So I didn't know how that worked for a small airport.
is a lot of the uncertainty and just not knowing precisely what it will cost to run it, is that due to not really knowing the future direction and not knowing precisely what's going to take place out there yet?
I think it has to do with not knowing who is going to be responsible for running the airport. We have had, we sought, what do they call it, RFPs, requests for proposals for a FBO, which is a fixed base operator. And in my mind, the primary thing that they're going to do initially would be they will make sure that the fuel is taken care of. For example, it was kind of a shocker. We were over at Cynthiana looking at an airport, and the fellow who was talking to us about their fuel farm was saying that there was a plane that went down, like out near Paducah or in southern Indiana, and the plane crashed. Of course, there's immediately an investigation. The first thing they do is, where did that plane get fuel? They go to that facility and they check that fuel to make sure that it doesn't have water in it, everything, it's good fuel. So it wasn't a fuel issue. Well, you have reports that have to be taken care of and measurements that have to be taken on a daily basis. So the fixed base operator would be in charge of the fuel farm. And my initial thought has been that they would sell the fuel for X amount per gallon, and they would build profit in, and that profit would be divided between the fixed base operator and the county, so the airport, which that's a different issue. Who owns and who operates the airport? Why do we have an airport board if the fiscal court has to make all of the final decisions? The fiscal court and their personnel are monitoring these monies that come in. Lisa Bullard, the county treasurer, keeps up with all that. So the airport doesn't have any employees. And so at this point, we're operating where the airport board reviews things and makes recommendations, and then the fiscal court makes the vote.
It's almost kind of an issue as to who would be, if the county were to continue operating it and hire an employee to do that, who's their supervisor? Is it fiscal court? Is it the judge? Is it the
Well-
airport board?
Well, I probably would be more like the county road supervisor would be primarily responsibility of the judge, but the fiscal court controls the money, so there has to be a good relationship and discussion.
What about
It's
the
supposed to work.
What about the liability side, though? Because from what I'm taking from this, there's a significant liability to messing some of this stuff up if a plane were to go down and
It's
you're
kinda what I
not.
thought from
Yeah, that might eat up
from
to
Spike's
all the
description
money.
there of the
Well-
fuel sales.
Well, actually, CAECO is the Kentucky Association of Counties, is the insurance people that the county deals with, and they are carrying the insurance on the airport now. And the land is actually titled in the name of the county. And so they're handling the money. So everything is the county. There was an ordinance passed, I think when Judge McFarland was judge, that created the airport board. So I still think we're going to have to figure all that out. But back to the FBO. So what happens, we went to Georgetown. A group of us went to Georgetown, and Georgetown is about 30 years ahead of us. And honestly, they're kind of the airport that we would like to be. We'd like to get there faster than they did. But they have, the way it was explained to us is that they started out with fixed base operator, and that worked for a year or two, and then they had a falling out and they fired that guy, and they hired another one, and that didn't work for about 6 months. And then the county did it, and then they hired a county employee manager, and that's kind of where they are right now. They have a fellow named James Toole, who is their manager, and he goes around and he's talking to people about the construction of these corporate hangars, these big hangars. And there are lease arrangements for those. This is a part that everybody needs to know, is the way these leases are set up is they will lease those buildings. They will rent on a square footage, so much per square foot. Say it's 16 cents a square foot, or 20 cents a square foot, or 30 cents a square foot. So that does the fixed base operator lease it and then and then build his own corporate hangar, or if a third party comes along and wants to do it. We're still trying to figure all this out, and we have a committee that's working on it because we've had 2 or 3 documents that have been recommended and approved, but there are some conflicts already in them. And some of the people that we're talking to who want to build these hangars, they don't like, because right now the hangar lease is for 20 years. And at the end of the 20 years, that building belongs to the airport.
County owns it.
The county owns it. And that's a good thing, but it's also, if we inherit a 20-year-old building, there's maintenance and things that have to be taken care of. They are wanting us to consider a 20-year lease with a easy rollover for a 5-year. Actually, they want a 10-year and then a second 10 years. So it could be as long as a 40-year. And the reason they want that is because it would have resale value or releasing value to somebody else. You get near the end, people might not be interested in making all the moves and changing everything and putting their airplane's tail number at that airport, and then a year from now or 2 years from now they have to switch it. But the buildings will actually belong to, and they never really stop belonging to, the airport, which is a good thing.
From what I've kind of gathered, it seems like whether to do a FBO or just a county operator, kind of seems on the direction the county wants the airport to go. If maybe slow growth or no growth, just kind of having an airport out there, a county operator might be the best suit. But if you want somebody to kind of know the industry, be able to push new growth, entertain new business coming, an FBO might be a better option if they're suited for that sort of thing. If they can attract new business.
Well, if we can attract an FBO that will come and do it on a deal that we can live with.
Yeah.
that the county can live with. The problem is, if we did the county operation, the county's gonna have to have an employee or employees to monitor the fuel, to know what they're doing, to get the training, and to stay on top of that. What about economic development of these other hundreds of acres that we have out there that we should be marketing and trying to get it developed? The FBO would have an incentive to do that. The county has an incentive to do that. But back to the employee, if the county doesn't have a budget that includes an airport employee, goes to Henry's point that has it cost or will it cost? How much will it cost? Well, it depends on what we ask that employee or the FBO to do. If the FBO is going to do it and he's going to get certain perks, one of the perks might be we will lease him the corporate hangar at a very good rate, say 16 cents a square foot, and then he can turn around and either build it or find somebody to build it and lease it to them for more. And the difference would be profit to him. So he has to be able to make money.
Yeah.
Or, and it goes back to the 20-year or 30-year or 40-year leases. Those people have looked us in the eye and said, we will not consider doing anything less than 20 years because we have to have a return on investment.
The FBOs, you mean?
Well,
or the people want to build hangars?
Yeah, we have attempted to enter a relationship with Windmiller Group as an FBO. But we have never been able, we had entered into a memorandum of understanding, but we have never been able to get beyond that to clarify what we are hoping that they will do. I get hung up on the economic development. And maybe that's wrong, but...
Well, I'm kind of hung up on that too, and it's one thing I wanted to ask you. I mean, what is the vision for that economic development? Because there's more than just the property that the county owns. Is the economic development pertain to other business or other industry that might come to the county or the surrounding counties? I mean, what all conversations take place there?
I think there's two layers to that. One is we have a number of flight schools that want to immediately, they want to start, if your kids want to learn how to fly a plane, the flight school will help with that. Those kinds of businesses on site at the airport servicing the planes that come and go. There's other property that could be developed for, I'm all over the place and I'm sorry, but I went to a meeting and we went to Congressman Jeff Davis's office, and the Kentucky Air National Guard was at the meeting. This is right after, well, not right after, but after Katrina. And one of the problems they had was they needed heavy lift, which is the Chinook, which is the two spin helicopters. And those came out of New Jersey to go to Louisiana to lift things up off of where buildings had collapsed. And the Air National Guard, the head of that was in the meeting, and they were looking for a place to put an Air National Guard unit. I personally was not disappointed when I heard that they'd moved on, because talking about people not being happy, I don't know. I think those make like twice the noise.
Yeah.
I know I was getting a haircut one day. One of the local farmers out there was mad because at the Speedway, they brought in those helicopters to, at the national anthem at the end, and he said he had to fix fence for weeks after that because his cattle went all up crazy. He said, I was going to get me a shotgun and shoot that. And I was like, tell me how that works out. Shooting a Black Hawk helicopter. But anyway, there are a number of businesses, but I think the second layer to the business is what can go onto that acreage out there, the additional property that was purchased. I want to tell you one other thing along that lines is we have had people who are in the know, who have come to our meetings, who have talked to us, who are very interested in the airport on a regional level, and talking in terms of drones, electric airplanes. They talk in terms of you probably don't remember the Jetsons, but a cartoon where
Yeah.
where people are flying around in personal.
I think that's the name of there is a Jetson car.
Right.
That-
Okay. Well, where it'll.
What do you need an airport for if you have that sort of?
I would
Aircraft.
imagine they won't let you land on them
Well,
anywhere.
Whenever this stuff becomes reality, which
sooner rather than later.
probably sooner rather than later, we're just going to go
Well,
where
that's
we
what I
need to
mean,
go.
if you-
But
if you
there's
get the
still going to
Jetsons
have to
thing, you
be
don't need a runway.
some form of air traffic control.
Right.
So probably, at least in its infancy, I would assume you would still have to go to the runway. You would
We
still
don't
have
have
to.
any air traffic control though.
I assume I was going to ask that too. Do we have air traffic
We're
control
small
via
enough that it's taken care of out of CVG.
CVG? Yeah, I mean you have to have it. It's just we don't have a tower.
And we're talking about jets and stuff, not, you mentioned drones and airplanes and stuff. I mean, or the electric airplanes. That's an actual airplane that might take off electrically. That would be a regional flight.
Well, one of the people that we talked to along the way, he said to me, look at Dallas-Fort Worth has 2 airports. One is Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, all the commercial flights, all the airlines come in and out. But then on the outskirts, like 30 miles away, is the Ross Perot Airport, and that is primarily business. And there are a lot of drone services that are starting. And one of the models that he was talking about is like CVS may have a facility at the airport, and the drones will actually deliver the drug packages instead of Amazon or FedEx or whatever. Is those drones will just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they will deliver your medications to your door.
And they operate from the airport.
They
on the
operate
drone? That's interesting.
right adjoining to that airport. I believe that's the way I was. But I can't. So the next layer was, so can you imagine you just got a washer and dryer and there's a drone delivering that? I mean, that would scare the heck out of some people.
But
That'd be interesting.
we would be theoretically an interesting place because we're really close to the UPS hub. We're really close to an Amazon hub, and we're right in the middle of Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati. So you could set up a drone hub here that
Services all of
We are spectacularly located. We had a guy at a meeting in June, a Dr. Julian, who's a professor at University of Cumberland. And I only know that because I typed the minutes up this morning early. And he came to talk to us because he has some affiliation with agency that deals with the horses, like at the horse park when they have the World Equestrian Games or they bring in horses from out of the country, they have to be quarantined. And so Bluegrass Field in Lexington does not have the acreage for them to be able to do that. And so then I think they went to Georgetown, and I don't know that Georgetown's much interested or whatever, but so this fella came to our meeting and said, would you all be interested in it? And there was, the number he threw out there was like, there's $10 million for building facilities or setting this program up. And we are ideally located because for the racehorse industry, for the thoroughbred industry, we're near Louisville, Lexington, and Northern Kentucky.
and Turfway.
So there are things that we can't even wrap our brains around or even think about because we haven't thought about them yet, but they're coming.
It's important to discuss every option, but
Absolutely.
I think I told you recently since doing this podcast, I watched a documentary on, I think it was CVG, that as recently as I think the 70s, they had maybe 2 jets that just flew regionally. That was it. Like they were no bigger than this airport.
No.
Other than length of runway, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe not at that time.
I can remember the first time I ever
Like-
rode an airplane, we got on it at CVG, and it was a rickety old aluminum stairway, and you went over and you walked out onto the runway and you climbed up into the plane.
Yeah, I think in the 70s they may have had 2 terminals, and it was somebody came in and they said we want to fly from Cincinnati to like Dayton, Cincinnati to Columbus, Cincinnati to Indianapolis. That was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I think Delta came in that really changed that airport.
Well, Delta gave, and then I think Delta took away later, and it hurt them,
Yeah.
but they have recovered.
Yeah, I gave you these numbers right after I watched that.
Yeah,
but
you did.
It was like early 2000s or something, they were getting like 22 million people a day through there, and now it's only like 9.
Henry, I want to, you asked a straight up question, and I think it deserves a straight up answer, and nobody, myself included, really has the ability to answer it. Is how much is it going to cost if we hired somebody like Brent Brown, who is a county employee, to work it, and check the fuel and do that? Obviously, that would be an employee, and the number we have knocked around is, let's say, if they got paid a salary, you start talking in terms of say $100,000 or $80,000 or 70. It doesn't take long for that to become 100 or 150 because of workers' comp and Social Security and retirement.
Right. Yeah, and I mean,
Right.
I just mean, yeah, cost of everything.
Yes.
What does it take? Do we have a vision for this is what the airport's going to be for the next 10 years? When we're done building whatever, here's what our total expected. I mean, I know there's variances and things, but I like to think if I'm going to go into something, I'm going to have a pretty good plan of here's what it takes to do this. Here's what I think it's going to cost. And here's what I think it's going to generate. So I have a basic idea of what my
Sounds to
profit
me
or loss
like,
is going to be.
if I were to summarize this past 30 minutes, there's still just too many unknowns.
Well, the problem with it is it doesn't matter because it's here and it's going to continue to be here. And it does have a value. I mean, I have people ask me, well, why don't we just sell it? We can convert, what can we do with $30 million if we just sold the airport? Well, obviously, back to the clearance.
Is that an option? Can you sell it?
Not that I mean, the FAA is not going to allow us to do that.
Well, see, that was a question that I had
Right.
raised with Bone
don't
and
know
Zach
if
once
you can
before.
sell
I
it.
said, well, if we own it and it's worth $30 million, can we sell it? We figured, we probably can't. So then my response was, well, then they didn't give it to us. They just gave us the job of running it. We don't actually own it.
Right. Well, I would say it would be interesting to see, because the thing about CVG is crazy, is CVG is a Kenton County airport that's located in Boone County.
It's named after Cincinnati.
And it's named after Cincinnati. And it has, you can go on and look at the the statutes. There are specific statutes that have been passed just for that airport. We're not any of that. We're just a general aviation airport. And we are where they were 60 or 70 years ago. And I was an elected official. All of those people that are elected officials are supposed to be the leaders of our community. And, one way to lead is to react. And the other way to lead is to react for today, but look towards the future, like where are we going with this? And you keep asking that question. Where we're going is incredible, but nobody can clearly define it for you. Are there set expenses? Absolutely. And you've got businesses. You all know how business. You can't just start a business and then the second month of being in business, it's all broke even and everybody's happy. There's a startup cost.
Well, there is,
where we
but
are.
that's kind of my thinking on it is when I, in business, when I take on some project or endeavor, before I do that, I have those figures in mind. I sit down and I say, this is what I think it's going to take me to do this. Here's what I think it's going to cost me for each aspect of that. And here's what I think I'm going to be able to generate from doing that. And I'm just trying to figure out if we have that plan, at least that basic, no, I'm not saying, I'm going to hold anybody to it or nothing, but I'm just wondering if we have that basic framework, I guess,
I think that might be
for the airport.
Kind of our job maybe to press our people running for elected office. Give us your plan. Like, this is a big issue.
I mean, like I said, I don't know what it could cost or make.
If you're running for elected office, whether it's fiscal court or judge executive, this is an issue in the county, and give us your 10-year, your 20-year plan. Where do you want it to go, and how are we going to get there?
Based
Right
on
now,
all,
maybe we're just going blindly.
on
People are thinking
I
about
don't
it.
think we're going blindly.
Not blindly. I mean, people are thinking about it, but we don't have a clear plan.
I think he's referencing the everyday citizen that are kind of, we may bicker and moan a little bit, but the everyday citizen doesn't have a clue what's going on out there. And a lot of what I've taken from what you've shared with us is that whether we capitalize on it or not, who knows? But there's a ton of really big potential that comes from that being out there.
Absolutely.
And that would be our job as citizens, if you will, is to elect leaders who might make the most of that.
Let me say this. I think the options are this. We have seen a proposal that if we were to commit to $650,000 a year,
Okay.
that would make sure that it would operate and that everything would be done exactly the way it's supposed to be done. And that would be reduced by whatever the rent is and whatever the fuel sales incomes are. But the county would probably have had to come up with that. Now, that proposal got rejected because there's not one penny been budgeted. And so.
That seems like a big number for the county to try to make up.
It is, and it couldn't even seriously be considered.
Right.
Okay, but we can't go in thinking we're gonna put zero in.
Well, I take a little bit of an issue with that because when it was proposed, that was the conversation that everyone heard, was that the county would spend $0 on the airport, that it was going to be fully funded by the state and the FAA.
And so far,
So who-
other than the mowing and the donuts,
Who proposed that?
who said that?
Yeah.
I mean, best I remember, I mean, I don't want to name names, but about every politician.
No,
or
no, I mean
anyone
the
who was-
650.
He's asked,
the 650.
Yeah.
Well,
So was that a third party that said for
That
this
was a
amount of
third
money
party,
we can make
yeah.
everything out here happen?
yeah,
So they were wanting profit off that.
Yeah.
Like they were going to make money.
well,
So this was an FBO? Would that?
well, we never really could get a definition on
Kind of
that.
a management,
Yeah.
part, you know,
Yeah, well, see,
management
that's the
contract.
thing. What difference does it make what you call it, whether
Yeah.
it's an FBO or a management?
I guess what's the FBO stand for exactly?
Fixed base operator.
So in my mind, when that's said, I think of somebody who's going to come in and kind of make the airport their own and try to grow it. We're going to
Well,
get a cut of it,
at
but
our
they're going to try
level.
to.
At our level, but say CVG probably has 2 FBOs. And so they have bases at the airport, and if you need maintenance done to your plane, you can pick who do you want to do that. Or if you want fuel, you can call that one or you can call that one, and they will take care of whatever your needs are. So that's different at CVG because CVG has their own equipment and their own employees, and they go out and they do the mowing or the snow removal.
When you were talking about the companies that, flight school or a maintenance company or something that had came to meetings, what did they want in return from the airport board or the airport? I mean, were they just were they
want us-
looking to lease ground, or were they looking to get? Was there a fee that they were wanting to collect to do that, or
Well,
what
they're
was
going
their?
to pay rent. They're going to have to pay rent for a corporate hangar, unless they want to build their own. They're still going to pay rent for the land.
Right. Yeah.
But then if they had extra space, they could rent out the extra space to other people or whatever.
but now if they rented, if the county decides to go the direction of an FBO, they would be renting from the FBO, not the county, most likely.
Well, I think the plan has always been is for corporate hangars, yes. You know, advice that we've been given and up until today, we hadn't really considered, you know, we would build the 10 hangar units, and it's laid out on the airport layout plan, but we had a proposal today where somebody private money wants to do the 2. So if they build them and they're renting the ground from us, then they're going to collect the rent. So we're going to collect ground rent from them, but they're going to get the unit rent.
Yeah.
And then there's where their profit would be. That was the guy I was talking about, you know, I would really like to get a 20 plus 10 plus 10 on the lease, you know, because I'm trying to, you know, do like what you're talking about, put the pencil and the paper together to make sure I can get a return on my investment.
Yeah. So all this demand for such long term, I have absolutely no clue, but it tells me it's big numbers that need to be invested. It's not cheap to run. It's gonna now.
Even if you're just building a hangar, I mean,
yeah, they
it's
may.
going to take you a while to recoup your investment on just the construction cost.
Yeah, they may well make a whole bunch of money in those 20 years, but it may take them 12 to get to break even.
Well, here's the philosophy that this gentleman had was he's going to build it with private dollars. it costs us $1 million to do it with government dollars. He's laughed and said, it will cost me half that. So he's going to spend $1 million and build 2 and be getting and he said, I'll rent mine for whatever I can get. So if I can get $400 a month rent, so even if 400 is what, 4,800 a month, you know, so I mean, somebody could calculate out, you economics guys could figure out, you know, what does he have to do to get a reasonable return?
Does it have to meet do the plans have to be approved before they construct? Because it does seem like the airport board would be interested in a 40-year build, you know, like a life expectancy of a building.
Right.
No, if you're a private citizen saying I can do it for half as much, I'm giving it back to you in 20 years.
So what do I care?
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there is that fear, but yes, there is a design. There's minimum standards. You know, we have adopted a color scheme so that all the buildings, when they're built, should all be lined up and they should all look the same. You know, color wise. You know, drainage. So if you start catching all this rainwater, you know, where's this water going to go? Engineering's got to be involved in all that.
With all this building conversation, we have not even talked about the terminal or the terminal.
Yeah, the terminal. Well, where we are on the terminal, which is important, is initially I can't tell you the year, I went with my assistant county attorney and Judge McFarland, got in a truck and went to Henderson. And we were looking for 2 things that day. One is they had a river port, and they had an airport, and they were together or across the road from each other. And airport purposes, they had a mobile home or a double wide as their terminal, and they had just completed construction of their new terminal. Very nice, you know, lots of glass and big money. So in the car, in the truck, you know, we were of the opinion that you would start with something small and then down the line worry about building the terminal. You take your money and put it into the investment side so that you can get a return on your investment, have income. You know, the terminal, is it going to produce income? Probably not, or minimally. But what happened is the people who have the money said, well, we've got $2 million and we want you to build a terminal. We want it to be state of the art. Because when people land in Kentucky, this is the first thing they're going to see. So it's like, welcome to Kentucky. And so with that in mind, we had engineering come up with some architects come up with proposals. And when we bid them, it came back at 2.8. We only had 2 million. Maybe they would stretch it to 2.1. So we pulled back, didn't reward the bid to anybody or the contract, and we removed things. And we downgraded, you know, we didn't have to have Taj Mahal carpet and new fancy lighting. And it does have a design with a swoop to the roof. And there's some discussion about just doing away with it, but at some point it just becomes a Morton building. You know, it's just a metal building. So we rebid it with the cuts, and it came back at 2.4 billion, and we're still at 2 or 2.1 from the state. So we have the county, the airport has to come up with that difference. Now, where we are is we've gotten that all finagled out and figured out. I think we were about $103,000 short. And the contract has been awarded, but contingent upon us figuring out the funding. And so what's happened is the legislative money comes in the middle of July, which is next week or the week after. Our contract bid is good till July 21st. So, right. So hopefully, and so today we were told, and it was explained is that we don't have to have the money in hand. We just have to have the commitment from the state that the money will be there. And everybody seemed to be satisfied that was going to happen. So I'm hoping that we're going to move forward with the terminal. The terminal will be built. It'll start almost immediately. And hopefully, I don't doubt that it'll be done by cold weather, but.
So you're going to find that missing, or the
missing $100,000.
Yeah, and it's
So
not
we've
good
got
with
17 or
This
whatever
is
comes.
still not coming from Gallatin County taxpayer money.
No, it's still taxpayer money.
Yeah, but not like from our property tax.
Correct.
What's the how many square feet is a terminal that costs $2.4 million or
It's 5,000 square feet.
5,000?
We started out with we wanted a 2-story. This is crazy. 2-story because, you only have to build one roof and one foundation. And, well, you got to have stairs. You have to have an elevator.
Yeah.
You have to have bathrooms on both floors. And by the time we put all the bathrooms and the stairs and the elevators in, the square footage usable square footage was going to be about the same with a 1-story. So we built it so that hopefully that if it needs to be expanded, it can be a little on either side. But primarily, it's to be a terminal. It's designed so that people who fly in, apparently pilots, they have kind of a routine and they fly in, they get fuel. Sometimes they need there's a lounge so they can go in and lay down on the couch and sleep a little bit. There's a bathroom, there's a shower, there's like a kitchenette area so they can microwave something. Originally it had washer and dryer and all. We cut and back. But
Is there any commercial space that like a business, like a
Well,
convenience store, or
that was
restaurant?
the purpose of the second floor, and so the answer is probably not, but we're open, because one of the things that often happens at an airport, at the terminal, is a restaurant, because the pilots evidently love to fly in, they call it a $100 cheeseburger or whatever, so they'll fly to Indianapolis, eat a hamburger, and fly home.
It would be an event for locals too to go
Yeah.
eat a burger and watch planes.
Well, we would have an observatory or a place where you can walk. The question should be, how many planes a day are going to be taken off? And I think we're having, should know the number. It's more than one a day at this point, and all we got's a porta potty right now. And we didn't have that for a long time. We had a bush over on, and now we've got a fuel farm and a porta potty. They're having a fly-in on July 25th, and if you haven't been out there, they're going to have. It's going to be a car show, and it's open to the public. They're going to have breakfast. Tourism's doing a pancake breakfast for the first 50 people that come or something.
Yeah.
So it's an event. And if you've not been out there, you should go. It's open to the public. You should drive up. I took a cousin from California who used to live here with us. I kept saying, I want to show you the airport. He goes, yeah. He's from California. We went to the Muhammad Ali Center, and his kids were all tired and asleep. So we got off the interstate, and he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to show you that.
Is that the best way to go to it? Is up the road they built there off the interstate?
Yeah. I think if you come into Park Ridge, eventually you're going to run into fence. So
I think you do now, actually. I think I went in one way or the other a few weeks ago and was thinking I'd drive through, and I'm pretty sure it was gated off or something.
I think but my cousin, he just went, wow. I said, what do you think it's going to be, a grass field? He said, I don't know what I thought, but I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive. It's amazing. It's what it is. It's kind of weird. I grew up here, okay? And, we went to a concert at Belterra. I think we went to see B.B. King at Belterra. And I'm sitting there, and my wife looked at me, and she said, are you crying? I said, I'm not crying. She said, why are you crying? I said, I can't believe this is here. I mean, this used to be a cornfield, right? I mean, you all
we remember. We remember.
Some of it.
Yep.
Anyway,
It is crazy what is in this one of the second smallest county in the state. I mean, there was a speedway. There's now an airport. There is a casino right there, but
I had my doubts about the airport up until the day of the groundbreaking. Bevan was here and he spoke. The judge from Oldham County got up. You all played ball against Oldham County. I mean, they've been handing us our lunch for decades, He got up there and he said that he was very jealous and envious that we got the airport there. He said, we tried hard to get this airport in Oldham County. We wanted this airport in Oldham County, and, we just couldn't pull it off. This is where it's going to be, and I just want you to congratulate you on a great day. I'm like, what the hell? Somebody from Gallatin or from Oldham County is. And I went to a meeting with Judge McFarland with the county judges, and that that judge was there, and the Henry County judge, and they were talking about recognizing high school graduates with for what they call soft skills, which is good attendance, good behavior. Because if you're good at school, you get a beta club thing, that rope to hang around your neck. And the guy from Henry County, he just got frustrated. He said, it doesn't matter what we think or what we say, because Gallatin and Carroll got all the industry. And I was stunned by that. That those people are jealous of what we have. It is amazing what we have here. And people say, I go to the prosecutor's conference, and they'd say, no, where are you from? I'd say, Gallatin. And they'd say, no, where is that? And I used to say, it's near Carrollton, or it's near Florence. Or I'd say, Kentucky Speedway. Have you ever? Yeah, I went to. He goes, is that Gallatin? I said, yeah. He goes, wow. Well, this Speedway is still there, but.
Yeah, people still know it.
Speaking of that,
segue.
What is the anticipation there? I mean, I would assume that the airport board would talk a little bit about what might happen to their neighboring property there. Just what's happening out there?
I don't know. We don't. I mean, that's on the other side of the interstate. We're going to get water. We thought originally it was going to come from the Speedway. I'm not sure exactly where it's coming, but it's coming from what's already on the north side or the south side of the interstate. So no. From the airport standpoint, I mean, I don't know really anything more about what's going on in the Speedway. I will say this. I was involved early on with planning and zoning. And planning and zoning is about the only protection that we can have about land use. And I think you're seeing the proposals in Carroll for sure. I looked at something before I came over here, like a Kentucky Lantern. It's like an online newspaper. They had an article and said one is proposed in Carroll County, one is being considered maybe in Owen County, and it's easy to see. Neither one of those counties have planning and zoning.
Talking about the data centers.
Yeah,
the best of
mine.
mine.
That's what you were talking
about. Last I heard, the one in Carroll County is almost a done deal, or practically is a done deal. I don't know if that's 100% or.
I have no knowledge about that. I will say, I think you and I talked when you invited me to come on here. I think after I've been to thousands of meetings. It's easy to sit on the back row and throw rocks at people who are trying to do good things for their community. My experience has been it's never as bad as people want you to believe it is. It's never as good as people want you to believe it is. But you have a duty to open your ears and open your eyes and learn what you can to make an informed decision. It may be the best thing that ever happened. I mean, there are communities that would love to have it, but maybe this is not the community.
It is so hard for me to really get any information on a data center that I feel is reliable, because there's like two completely different narratives out there.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what to believe.
It's just like everything else in the world. You can't trust anything anybody says.
But, I mean, some of the stuff, though, I mean, like, the flyer that I saw for the one they're talking about building here in Carroll County that's, practically on our county line. I mean, the promises they're making financially for the community, it's like, that's, ridiculous. Why? My first thought is, usually if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So, I'm looking at those numbers and I'm like, this is not adding up. I don't either. It's really bad what they're going to do. I mean, why would they pay that much, or are they going to pay that? Like, why does it sound too good to be true? Because I just don't really believe that to be a reasonable, thing to expect, I guess.
My big thing on it is for how long, maybe they do match all those proposals, and the unicorn that we always talk about. Maybe we do have a unicorn fly around for 1 year or 2 or 3 or
Yeah,
4.
I was looking at to put it into perspective. You know, they were claiming what $30 million a year or something in county revenue or something, tax revenue
yeah,
just
and
from
that's
the data
all fine
center.
and dandy if it's
In
one
the same Carroll County Fiscal Court meeting, they talked about their budget for this year, and we know all the industry they have down there. You know, we've talked about that before, how much industry they have and things. Their general fund budget for the coming year, I guess, was like about $6 million. So I mean, put that into perspective for what this one company is promising.
Yeah,
And I mean, that just doesn't add up. Why are they promising so much?
yeah.
It's never as good as it always is sold.
What are they promising? 30 million a year or something? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I do think once they get people to start saying yes, like if Carroll County does get one and they're going to get $33 million a year, now Gallatin County's going to be like, we've got to have one. I'll do it for $15 million. The price can come down as soon as people start saying yes.
Maybe.
They're offering these huge numbers.
We've
and
talked
everybody's
about
still
it.
saying
We've
no.
talked about it several times on here, and I've asked the question multiple times: do we have an example of one that is paying anywhere near these numbers? Because they are out there. I mean, there are data centers that are built. Are there any that we can look at and compare and say they actually are paying anywhere near what these places are promising?
On the things that I watched that you all previously talked about, bonding. I don't know.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Bonding, somebody, I think one of my kids said, well, what do you do, or what did you do? At one point, I sat down and I figured out, I was involved in over $1 billion in bonding. Gallatin County, we had a $640 million bond most recently at Nucor. Maybe they've had one since then, but you asked some questions about the pilots, the payment in lieu of taxes, and I just wanted to point out that the original bond for Gallatin Steel, which is now Nucor, is expired. So they're on the rolls and they're paying tax, but that's for land.
Well, are they?
$640 million was primarily for equipment.
Are they paying tax on that? I mean, what?
On the
Because we were that's an interesting conversation, because when we had Ryan on, he said that there was something about with the
school
with the
had to
bond
be made
deals now,
whole.
the school had to be made whole. So I'm thinking, looking at that, and I'm saying, okay, they bought this place for $770 million or whatever it was, and they spent $650 million, on an expansion, and then they added another $150 million or whatever it was for the tubular. But I'm just, doing some like simple figures here, and I'm like, well, the school's got to be just rolling in cash. Like, how much tax are they paying the school? But then we got a copy of the school's budget not long ago, and what was it, $600,000 a year or something that Nucor was paying the school? I don't remember the exact number, but it was nowhere near what the school tax rate would be. I mean, it's not even like a fraction of it. So we were trying to figure out how the school's made whole with those numbers.
I do not remember the numbers and percentages and things like but I do remember sitting at the table, and it was at the school board office, and it was a Zoom call, or not a Zoom call, we were just on speakerphone, but the school was involved. I mean, so there wasn't anything done that the school didn't know about. If you're
Right, but the way Ryan put it was that it was like a state law or something now, that the school had to be made whole. So we were trying to figure out what is whole, because
you were talking about counties start negotiating. Well, they want 30 million. We'll do it for 15 million. That's what you got. We were online at one point, I believe, for a huge solar panel production facility. But they wanted the utility company to guarantee utility rates frozen for like 30 years. And KU or Duke or whoever it was said, hell no.
It's kind of ironic. For the solar
TVA
company.
said, hell yes. And it was built in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you got these states and these counties that negotiate, and
I guess that's a concern. Speaking of the utility costs, you know, what some of the downside of the apparent data centers, that's a concern for us now. If they do build one in Carroll County, because that's going to affect our utilities just the same as Carroll County's, I guess.
One on the Gallatin County line, or the Carroll County side of Gallatin County, right on the line, is worst case scenario. If we have to see it, if we have to listen to it, and they're on the same grid.
Hopefully somebody does some good negotiating on our behalf.
Yeah, they get the money.
Hopefully Carroll County does some good negotiating.
Yeah, I don't think they're really concerned about it.
Did you all watch that meeting where they talked about the data center, the Carroll County Fiscal Court meeting that I sent? I think I sent it
You
to you.
did send it. I scrolled straight to the point of.
Whoever the guy was that did a little presentation in that meeting made it sound as if Carroll County didn't have any way to turn them down, which I assume is the zoning that you were talking about where Carroll County doesn't have it.
Well, there's a difference in not being able to say no, and then you go to the negotiating table and you broker your deal. So that they still have the opportunity to be the most attractive deal maker or the least attractive, which would make them want to go look somewhere else.
Well, I mean, if they're looking for tax breaks, I guess, but from the numbers they're putting out, I don't think they're looking for any breaks according to what they were.
Well, did the state legislature pass a statute that promised tax breaks for these data
I
centers?
don't know, did they?
That's what I was just looking up, because the last conversation that I had about data centers, it was told to me that Kentucky had passed a tax exemption for 50 years, and they were concerned that no matter what deal gets made, the county's not going to see anything for 50 years. But what this says is, it was in 24, I think it started in Jefferson County, and then in 25 went to all 20 counties. It is a sales and use. So for servers, routers, cabling, the purchasing of those products, there's no sales and use tax.
But they would still be taxed on that property.
So like they'd pay tangible tax and property tax
So that's
and all that
essentially
the
just
same.
knocking off the 6% sales tax.
Sales tax doesn't do anything for the
Well,
local
school- does-
community anyway, really.
Yeah.
Does the school have a utility tax here?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think they do. And so
I think,
if
yeah.
Nucor uses a lot of electricity. So I don't know whether your 600,000 was just real estate tax, but they also
Well,
pay utility.
Yeah, but we were talking about in that conversation we were talking about the real estate tax, like property tax. Basically,
Right.
we were talking about that, and that's when he said that that's when he made the comment about the schools having to be made whole, which I don't understand that with the numbers they're paying.
Yeah, what Henry's saying is, when we were doing the math of what theoretically the PVA would value that place at, you're north of $1 billion. And when we do our math based on what our valuations are, that percentage of $1 billion does not equal 600 and some odd
If
thousand.
they
It's
valued this
it's not
building
even
at $1
close.
billion,
It's a tiny
missing
little
a zero.
Yeah, it's a tiny little bit.
Well, what is, I saw a quote, it's like, numbers lie,
They're
whatever.
not supposed to, but
They're not supposed to, but what is this? I can't remember statistics, damn statistics or whatever. There's a quote on that, but I will say that Ruth Middleton was the PVA, and she fought hard. Judge McFarland was the judge at the time. She fought hard with Speedway because the Speedway had the race, and she had done her homework, and she had contacted Las Vegas Speedway, the PVA out there, and Daytona, and Bristol, and Talladega. And I mean, they were paying like on $6 million or $8 million, and the next closest one was $30 million or $60 million real estate, and they of course have appealed it. We ended up with the tax appeal board in Frankfurt. We presented. It was just the two of us. We presented the case, and we had to break for lunch. And when we came back, they basically said, off the record, that we can be here all afternoon, but this is what we're going to do. So if you want to go ahead, present. It's like, okay. So anyway, what you're up against there is, and I was trying to get to it earlier, is that $640 million bond that was most recent one, which I've been at office for 3 years, so it's probably 10 years ago. I think they put the tube division in or whatever, and they built a building But it's it's a smaller, tall building. But most of that money went towards equipment, machinery. And what they do with that is they just depreciate that out over 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, or whatever. So, the land costs what the land costs, and then the improvements on the land would be the buildings.
But all the equipment gets depreciated out and is no longer taxable because they're calling it.
It's a different tax too. It's a tangible property tax versus a real property.
So where do you, I'm not an expert on this, but in the world of real estate, there's fixtures that determines what real property is and what is, I guess, would be tangible property. And I mean, I would be hard pressed to believe that most of the equipment they're putting out in there, or that they're using in there, is not affixed to the properity that would make it a fixture in common real estate. Which I don't know about commercial real estate. I just know a little bit about residential, but
I wanted to tell you, I'm thinking about American Racing Building. I was in the room, talked to Judge French at that time, and we had a bond for American Racing, and they had sold it to a German company or a New Zealand company, and they traded hands. But whoever was holding the bonds, they defaulted on the bonds. And so Kenny called me and he said, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. It means they're not going to pay." He goes, "Yeah, but what does that mean?" And I said, "Let's call the man." So we called the bond counsel, the attorney. That's what he does day in and day out. And we finally got through to him. And it was Roger Peterman. And he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Hey, we've got these American Racing bonds down here, and the company that's holding them has just given us notice that they're going to default." So what does that mean?
He said
Dead silence. He goes, "I don't know." He said, "I've never known anybody to default on it." But the reason I bring that up is because when they left American Racing, they pulled all that equipment out because that was different than the funding for the building. And when they left it, I think they had to tear up the floor and re-pour the floor. That's how damaged the floor was. So that popped into my mind. What you're saying is, how are those not fixtures if you have to tear up the floor?
Yeah.
How are they not affixed?
I mean, unless there's some different law for industrial property, which maybe there is, but if there's not, then that is definitely fixtures and part of the property.
What's the difference between a computer and a data center that I bet you could pick up and move a whole lot easier than you can a tube line down here? So where's the tax revenue come on these data centers?
Well, that's really important as to how you classify those things, as to whether they're paying based on the equipment that gets put in. And that's a whole nother conversation. You've got company A that's running around building these things, and that company A is not even looking to run a data center. Company A is looking to lease to company B or C to come in.
That's what they were putting out about the one in Carroll County.
I hadn't heard about the one in Carroll County. I read in the paper the Senator Williams had said, he used the word billion. That has to be a typo or he misspoke. Because what was it, 20 or 30 billion dollars a year to these communities?
I think that must have been, I think it was supposed to be a million because 40 million is what they were saying. 40 million annually in tax revenue is what they were claiming this one in Carroll County is going to generate, which is, I mean, that's hard to believe.
I do know, so like I always reference this committee that I serve on with Farm Bureau, but they give us some pretty extensive reports, and they haven't really gathered any data as to what's legitimately happening at the county level. But these offerings for land that we hear about, those are legitimately happening. So, I mean, you are legitimately seeing that. The last meeting I went to, they talked about a $90 million farm that was purchased in Illinois, $250,000 an acre.
I've heard some pretty crazy numbers for the ones around here.
It's crazy. Wow. It's insane. But in a sense, it gives validity to these other numbers. Like there are real crazy numbers that are transacting.
So this is monthly rent that Anthropic is renting from SpaceX, their Memphis compute site. and they are paying $1.25 billion per month for just rent. So
How are they generating that much income?
and then, Anthropic's one of these companies they're planning on going public anytime now with, $1 trillion valuation,
So that's a
but they don't have the revenue to support that.
So that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation, a really big, deep one. I've read a couple little not great source information, but some pretty interesting reads about the AI bubble. Could
Oh,
be
it's
the
a big-
worst
it could be the worst
economic
ever.
to ever bust.
With basically our government, our stock market, our investors, everybody has bet everything on AI. And if it doesn't turn out to be what they think it's going to be, even as fast as they think it's going to be
So that's the problem.
if it even fails on the time frame that they have in mind, then yes, it's going to be a massive economic problem.
Yeah, so almost everybody can relate to the .com bubble. Well, everything that was supposed to be of the internet came to fruition. And everything that should have been trillions and trillions and trillions of value of the .com thing,
It just took way longer than
it
they
just took
thought.
too long.
Yeah.
It couldn't happen quick enough so that it had to go bust.
We talked about this at the time. There was internet, but it was not in everybody's home.
Yeah.
And it was not convenient. So the idea was there. People knew of the internet, but they didn't have access.
And
to
it was real and it was legit.
And
It
I-
just wasn't ready
I
yet.
think
Wasn't mature.
That's kind of the same thing we're running into now. Is why everybody wants to build these data centers. Is there might be the need for AI. AI is there and ready to take over the world. But if there's not the compute power, and the other thing, if there's not the electric,
Well, and
Power it.
how does
It
it
might
act?
go
How does
bust.
the AI actually generate the revenue to pay the rents? Like Spike was saying, I mean, when you're talking about, I mean, I can get on my phone and it's free. Are people going to all of a sudden are they going to have a huge bill that it costs for AI? That I mean, how many people are going to be able to make that
Well,
jump all at once for them to generate the revenue? What's paying for this?
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Probably our tax dollars.
YouTube used to
I'm
be
guessing
free.
that you're right on that when it
Tax
comes to a
breaks,
lot of
for
what's
sure.
going on right now is that the federal government is
It's-
somehow funding a lot of this
Wow.
stuff.
Well, I don't know if y'all remember, back in like '08, I don't know, YouTube, there were no ads on YouTube and it was totally free. Facebook, there were no ads, totally free. Pandora, there were no ads.
I mean, is-
Shopify, there were no, like, everything started out free.
Yeah.
It's no longer free.
Then they
They're
pulled the
making
rug.
a boatload of money.
Well, but a lot of them went broke before they, before
yeah,
they made any money. I mean,
There'll be a lot of busts.
You rent property, so what's the income tax on $1.4 billion a month in rent?
God, I don't even know.
I'm pretty sure.
I've
it's
never,
not paying
I've
that.
never had to consider anything like that. So I don't know.
SpaceX, they're probably still saying, no, we're losing money.
That's a big number.
It's a big.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
No, you're only
But-
paying it on the profits you make, though.
Speaking of taxes, though, we're gonna take this into tomorrow's hours if we keep going. But I want to ask you about the library.
Wait,
That's
so-
the only thing, it's the county money.
They're probably one of the only things that collect tax that we've found that is just flush of money,
they are.
and they keep on getting a whole bunch of it. So, what would be the explanation from someone who may know a little something on the inside there?
Okay, I know that I've been on the board for a year and a half, a couple of years. And when I first saw that, I said, as soon as the people on fiscal court see that you have this, because I think at this point it's at $2 million. And I heard the Kyle Kelly discussion about the 4%. We just keep cutting the rate. I mean, the rate keeps coming down. And I don't know that I agree with him about the 4% on new ad or what, all that, but what county government, same as the library, gets a letter from people in Frankfurt saying this is the compensating rate. So if you're going to keep up with inflation, this is what if you want to stay the same, and if you get near the 4%, you're notified. So as far as I know, the county has never done that. As far as I know, the library board has never taken more than the 4% of it. Let me say this: I was in the county government for over 20 years because I went as an assistant county attorney. They never took the compensating rate. They always either kept it the same or lowered it. Same for the library since I've been paying attention. That we have benefited tax-wise from the rising assessments. So your question is how did that come about?
My
They
question.
don't spend a lot of money.
Well, my question is, why does the library not lower their rate? Why do they not work with the school or whoever needs the money? I mean, tax dollars are not meant to be piled up. We conflict greatly. I don't think government entities they're not for-profit entities.
They're not.
It's funny. I mean, this makes me think of what we've heard from a lot of our county politicians about the rising costs without rising revenue for the county. And this is kind of a conflicting report here from the library. Has the library not had any rising costs? Have they been impervious to the costs increase that everyone else has apparently experienced?
We have it's one building.
Yeah, I'm
They
not
are
attacking the library. I'm
subject to
saying
the worst.
I'm saying I am a fan of how the library's finances are being ran, and I'm wondering why our other government entities are seemingly struggling to keep pace. Because Spike just referenced them being the beneficiary of the rising revenue from the tax assessments and things.
This is government 101. You get these pots of money and you must spend it or you don't get
Yes,
it
but
again the next year
you're missing the point
unless
of what
you're
I'm
the
saying.
library. They keep getting it without so
Let me say this. If they ever pull the trigger on, say, another facility, a branch, which is kind of would be a logical step, it would be a big number. It would be purchase or property or at least building a facility or at a minimum remodeling. We've got the firehouse up on 16. The county uses it for a polling place. I think they parked a fire truck there for a while. They got some playground equipment outside. There's a fishing pond, I believe. It was property that was purchased years ago. But at this point, the library is trying to find ways to serve people. Libraries traditionally are about books. People aren't interested in books.
Yeah, that's
They're
kind of
interested in computers.
Yeah.
We have great online services. I have probably on my phone, probably 4 or 5 books downloaded that I'm listening to, depending on whether I want fiction or nonfiction or whatever. But Hoopla is our service. Other places have a more expensive. I should remember the name.
So there's an audiobook service through the library?
There is.
I didn't know that.
And
That's interesting.
You get it on your phone, and you don't even have to go to the library.
Where do you get that?
I would go to the library and get some. You're asking me. We had tech issues earlier. I go to the library and Sean Hole or somebody comes out.
Okay, I got you.
And every once in a while,
So you can go to the library and they'll set you up where you can get audiobooks through the library. That's interesting.
is it like
That's
a
good to
Gallatin
know.
County Library app?
No, it's a service. It's called Hoopla, and they put it on, and it's provided to you. When you open it, it says Gallatin County Public Library, and then your page comes up, and if you've got a book out or whatever. It's not just books either. It's music, it's movies.
So is that something that the library pays like a subscription for that
We
the
do.
county can use?
We do, and
Okay.
Is
that a free service to the residents, or do they pay? That's good to know.
We
I
should
feel
all
like
be
that's
using that.
information that I had no idea that was.
Yeah, I
a
didn't
thing,
know
and
that
there's probably
existed.
a lot of other people in the county
and
that don't know that.
it's a great service. I use it every day. There are a lot of things. The library, majority of the use of the facilities at this point, and for my life, is meetings. We had the airport board meeting in the big room. If there's something going on, we can certainly move into. They have our little reading room. When I first got on the board, there was talk about renovating the library, maybe putting new carpet in, furniture. And at this point, we have hired an agency to do a recommendation. Like what should we be thinking about that we're not thinking about? And it's expensive. We pay thousands of dollars for them to come in and do it. But I'm interested to see what the report will be. It should be in August, I believe. But we did not, because the proposal was to be like $400,000 or $600,000 to put new furniture, new carpet.
Wow.
I was just not in favor.
I feel like I could probably get in the carpet installation business.
Right. Right.
That's what it takes to put it in the library.
So we have, there's been an original building and then there's been additions. So the heating and air conditioning is kind of piecemeal. And so we just paid thousands of dollars to get that all upgraded. And we've had some plumbing issues in the bathroom and we paid. But those, for the most part, the expenses are pretty
Overall, the
steady.
library is operating with a surplus,
Yes,
which is rare for any
right,
taxing district or entity.
right. It is.
And
I
that seems to
promise you-
offend Bone. For me, I'm like,
but
kudos.
my
you know?
point is that means they need less of that revenue. Someone else needs it more.
I've got no problem with the revenue. I'd like to see more. What's the library doing?
I don't know, Bone. I'm gonna have to-
somebody that, my kids.
I'm gonna have to argue with you, Bone, on that.
Go to the I would be probably I'm both sides here. I'd be perfectly fine if they said we're going to cut the rate and we've decided that the past 3 years we have a $200,000 surplus. We can't think of how to spend the money. We're going to cut the rate. But if the tax is already made, I'm also fine with, hey guys, we think we can benefit the community this way, this way, this way, and this way, but start doing that, not just hoard the money. Start doing it.
I understand what you're saying, Bone, but when I look at that, I am not a fan of penalizing fiscal responsibility. I think that's a lot of the problem with some of our government when they say, you got to spend this money or you're going to lose it. I think that creates a lot of excess spending that we don't need. I am a fan of government that is fiscally responsible and.
But if they're not lowering the tax, it doesn't do any good. Which again, I'm not.
Well, it does
I'm not
because
saying-
it prevents tax increases, which is what normally happens in government when they run out of money because they spend all their money. Let's just draw a level line here and just maintain, and I'm fine with that.
I'm not saying that they need to create a budget surplus or a deficit. I'm just saying if they have this coming in right now,
Well, I'm
why
saying let's not
spend
penalize.
90%
I'm
of
saying
it
let's
and
not
do
penalize
good
them for being
community?
fiscally responsible.
Well, I can't believe it. I understand what he's saying, and I agree with it. I agree with what you're saying. Is the problem is we have a limited facility, and one of the things that I've noticed as a director, which is Sean, has been there for several years. He has our payroll is down, so the contributions. So we're actually doing more with less. But one of the things that he has been stressing is we have a great relationship with the schools and they do community outreach, but a lot of that community outreach is done through the school.
So are you saying that you all have hit a cap based on your infrastructure?
I didn't say that. I'm not sure what you
Or
mean.
you,
by
you're
that.
talking about the facilities that you
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
kinda
yeah. You
tapped
were saying that you're
Yeah.
limited by your facilities because something that I was going to go along with to kind of modify my opinion here based on our conversation, there are a ton of great programs. We've just all three of us learned about one that you shared with the hoopla that we didn't know. Maybe some expense could be advertising to get all this stuff out to the public to let them know. But are you saying that the facilities are not sufficient if you were to be flooded with kids trying to take advantage of these services?
Well, I have heard at recent meetings that on Tuesdays, when they have the readings, that they have had as many as 30 kids. And at that size, it becomes unwieldy. You can't keep chaos to a minimum.
Especially with 30 little kids.
30 little kids.
Especially if mine's there.
So the question is that something we should offer an alternative date or something? So no, I don't know that the facility, I don't think we're,
Okay.
there are two, there's a children's wing and then there's where the children's wing used to be. It's a big meeting room now. There used to be a bank of computers, and there were kids from the neighborhood or in town that were always in there hanging out. I don't see that as much because our kids have laptops or notebooks or whatever, and they got internet at home now, and they don't have to come to the
I think that's one of the things, like the story hour on Tuesdays, community involvement like that. As somebody, we've each had little kids. I've got a 3 and a 7-year-old, but being in a rural community, that sort of community outreach, that was the first thing I thought of when you hear of the $2 million surplus sitting there. Is like everybody in this community, like you're driving to Florence for a music class, you're driving to Florence if you want to have dance or karate or anything like that. Just because when you got a 2 to 5 year old before school, you're thinking, what can I do with this kid to get them outreach? Like, how can I get them out in the world? How can I teach them something? That seems like something that, you know, if you got $2 million, because there's not enough business here for somebody to come set up for all of those things. But with a library, with the advertising that they might do, that they might be able to subsidize somebody to come in and set up.
That's a good idea.
And making it an affordable thing for kids to come do.
It's interesting. I mean, we are really looking for new things. And one of the suggestions has been made from the surveys I participated in and got feedback was like a tool crib, you know, like a
Tool rental?
somebody wanted, tool
Like
rental.
a tool library.
Right, tool library. They have things like, I don't even know the tech, what's the word, like a hotspot, where you create a hotspot. There's a piece of equipment that can make that happen.
For internet?
We have 1 or 2 of those that somebody can come and check that out. So, I mean, that would never occur to me. You know, back in the day, you know, you could go and you could check out a VHS player or a DVD player or whatever. So I think they're trying to do that. But I think what you just suggested, if I heard you right, was we could facilitate bringing people in. They bring people in. I mean, if you pay attention, I mean, they got a Mahjong class on the 21st. If you want to be in it, you need to register because it's limited to a certain number of people. But somebody, I think a lady's coming in and teach people how to actually play Mahjong. You know, we play a version that's like concentration or something.
And I totally understand, you know, being involved in other community things, that you can rack your mind around how can I do service to the community, and then you go out and do something and you get no community support.
Yeah.
You only get complaints that there's nothing happening.
That's devastating. You know, I know tourism will have music under the hill on the river. And you go down there and there's 15 people there for this, you know, or we have.
And then on Monday, people complain there's nothing that happens.
Right. You know, they have the Historical Society.
By the way, the 4th of July River Days was, I think, the biggest turnout I've seen down there in years. The place was packed. It was packed down there.
It was packed. But the Historical Society and the library work together, and they bring in what they call like a Chautauqua speaker. It was a guy came from Georgetown College, and he pretended to be Adolph Rupp. This was years and years ago. There was probably 60 people there. That's probably one of the biggest crowds. You know, but then they have somebody comes in and plays another character, or they have a little, you know, jazz, you know, and you get 10 people. It's kind of discouraging. But you got to keep trying. I think the thing that the library board had kind of got their head down and focused on was, if we have to have an additional facility, you know, because the second largest community in Gallatin County is Mars Place in Miller's Ridge, South Ridge.
Yeah, there's a lot of homes in there.
Right, you know, so that's why I was talking about that place up on 16, because that's a lot closer to them, and we wouldn't have to buy real estate. You know, the property belongs to the county, so maybe we could do something there and have some programming there and reach into that part of our community. Because a lot of people that live up in that area have complained bitterly that, you know, I don't go to Warsaw.
I think a lot of people in Gallatin County and Warsaw in particular, they don't realize how much of the population in the county is in the north end of the county that don't really come to Warsaw a lot. And there's a lot of people up there.
Well, my background is slightly different, but I've often thought about that from a sports perspective. You know, how many of those kids miss out on what happens with t-ball or soccer or what? Because it's a 25-minute drive.
That's what I was going to say. It's a journey for their parents to get them here.
Yeah,
That's all true.
Truly closer to go to Walton.
I will say that I think the library question is an important one. I have said that repeatedly. I've been on the budget committee 2 years in a row, and I've told them that there's going to be a day of reckoning. We have to. You can't hold that much money. You know, Clarence would say, you know, it's sinful to have held. You know, don't take the money from the people if you're not going to use it.
Yeah, I hate to sound like a tax and spend Democrat here, but I will say, if the money has been paid by the taxpayers deserve to get a service from it. And, you know, which brings about my statement, either there or somewhere else. There, I think we have conversed. There's a ton of great things going on there, so it would be great to expand upon those. But
You asked Kyle Kelly the question about, so can the library transfer the money
mhm.
to the county? I think he answered it correctly, is that I don't think that would be legal, but if the library was in trouble, I think the county could help the library, so.
That's a pretty good system there
It's a
for
good
the
place to
library.
be.
Yeah, well, that's what he's saying.
Collect
is
this
that-
money. Sorry, it only goes one way.
I'm not saying transfer the money that's piled up. I'm just saying the tax rate could be adjusted.
I think you all were talking about the school, because the school, when those bonds,
Yeah,
come,
yeah.
you know, the school's gonna do very well, in the like a Speedway or something. The
Yeah.
county's revenue's gonna drop, yeah.
Well, that is assuming that, earlier I think you alluded to when assessments get appealed, they go to a state board or something eventually, and
Eventually.
you know, depending on how they see our side of it, I guess.
Was that the one that they told you this is how it's going to go? We
Yeah.
can.
I had heard that in courtroom before, but that was my first and only experience at the state level on the tax appeal board. I will say Ruth Middleton was tenacious, so she was, we tried to compromise, like, you know, was there any compromise? No. And, you know, it was all or nothing, and it came to be nothing, so.
That happens sometimes, I guess. But in wake of all this, just county budget and where money's at, where it's going, we gotta pick your brain on one other topic.
Okay.
So it's obviously been a little bit of a issue or discussion point here in the county lately of pay rates for elected officials. I think pretty much common theme of all of our shows that we've had is money is tight. So kind of
At the county level.
at the county level. At the county level, money is tight, and we do have, I think, multiple people asking for increases in pay. So one of which being the county attorney, which you served as for 20 years. Give us a little insight on what all is behind that, because I think some of what made it into the newspaper was that the county's paying $14,000-ish. You know, I don't want to be quoted verbatim, which sounds offensively low, but I think with just a little bit of digging, there's a lot more than meets the eye there. So what all kind of goes into that?
Well, I don't know the exact number. The number that the county pays is exactly what a magistrate would make. So the county attorney gets paid same dollars, but that's from the county. In addition to that, the county attorney also serves as the misdemeanor prosecutor and gets paid through Frankfurt for the state job that they're doing. And as a result, the county attorney is contributing to county retirement and also state retirement. As far as I know, it's the only position that participates in both retirements. I went through retirement and tried to, you know, and they're like, well, your check's going to be, and I'm like, well, what's the other check? You only get one check. You know, you kind of got to knock them off that because they don't understand. And then I'm like, oh, you're right, you know, county attorney. So my understanding about the county attorney on the state pay, there was a change right before I became county attorney, and that was in '03. All counties were paying different, all county attorneys were getting paid amazingly different amounts. And so what they did is they made it uniform. So every county had to pay a minimum, or every county attorney is a minimum from the state at that time was $55,000. So when I started as county attorney in 2003, first year I got paid $55,000 plus, I think it was $13,900 or something from the equivalent to the magistrate at the county level. Then you get county attorney is a constitutional office, so constitutional offices have a built-in raise to keep up with cost of living,
COLAs,
and so by the time I went out of the office, I don't know exactly. I never saw a check. My wife direct deposit, and that was the end of that. I never saw it, but I was making in the 70s as the state prosecutor and still making 13 from the county. And in addition to that, I have children, and I was trying to figure out how do you pay for 16 years of college and the 12 years that were laying in front of me. And so I had been trying for years to get the child support contract. So I got the child support contract here. I had to fight for it. And they didn't like me having it, and they never wanted me to have it. And eventually they took it away from me. But I made the contract for the child support when I got it was about $90,000. But from that, you had to pay all the expenses. And so I had one full-time employee, which was Jane Lynn Brown, and I had 3 part-time employees, which were all out of the Boone County child support system. One lady was the bookkeeper, because we wanted to keep straight with the books. And then the other 2 were to keep Jane Lynn moving and to keep us doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. So they would review, give a work, like this is a work list or whatever. But out of that, I paid, and I had an office building that belonged to me, and I rented the child support space. So there was rent. I think we were charging $600 a month at that time. And they let me do that for a while, and then they told me you can't do that because if you own the building, you can't rent for it. So if somebody else owned the building, I could rent it from them, but I couldn't rent it from myself. So we stopped that. But at one time, so that's what, $7,200 a year, and then I made about $10,000. So out of the 90 or 95, 90, by the time we were moving along, it got bumped up a little bit. It got close to 100,000, but I was making 16,000 or something. And
From the county?
No, from the child support
Okay,
contract.
okay.
So all these little pieces join together. So you got county's money, child support money, and prosecutor money. Then there was another set of money when I first started as county attorney. Now think about this: the county sheriff, the county provides that office. Everybody's office is provided. Their phone is paid for. Their electric is paid for, but not the county attorney. My dad had been the county attorney from back in the 60s. Mr. Conley was before that. And they all have their own private office. So you had the county attorney's office was out of a private office. So
Is that the same in every county, or is that just a Gallatin County
No,
thing?
it turns out that is very rare. None of the counties around us have that. None of them. It was confusing, and it led to issues, which I don't want to get into audits and all that, but they called me on the carpet about that because I had mingled, the law allows it. The Attorney General's office encourages it because in rural communities, nobody wants the job because at that time, if I'm making $13,000 a year, why would I want to be county attorney? So back in the 50s or 60s, there were Attorney General's opinions that said that you could clearly do that. You just keep the money separate. But so you got private practice. The best perk for the county attorney is he has a private practice. But if I have a private practice, the county was giving me $100 a month to cover all of my expenses. Cell phone, internet, water, sewer, rent, electric, all of that.
It's only missing a zero.
It's $100. Well, Kenny French came along in 2007. And I guess he was working on the budget. He called me up and he said, "What the hell is this?" And I said, "What do you mean? I didn't know that I should have asked for more money. It never occurred to me." He said, "That's ridiculous." He said, "We pay more than that for the garbage and water service to the sheriff's office, So anyway, he said he wanted me to do the homework. Anyway, came up with a number. I called Carroll, Owen, Boone, Grant, all the counties around and got numbers like, what do they pay for the county attorney? So he began paying me $800 a month for that. And now that's not really income, but it was newfound money for me. So, so I had some help on paying electric bill and all those bills. So anyway, these little things added up, and that's what I was making. Now, I believe he took the contract. Mr. Axon got the contract for child support, but he didn't keep it very long because it's not really a good deal. And they don't give you a lot of help. They require a lot from you, and the money's kind of a wash. I used that money also. They give you or during my time, they give you $10,000 a year. Actually, they reduced it to $9,800 a year to hire an assistant. And so your only help legally, or from a lawyer standpoint, you've got $9,800 to hire somebody to come here and be a lawyer. It's not a lot. And so you use the child support money also to entice somebody to come. But if you don't have the child support contract, then that money goes away. So I have sympathy for him from the standpoint that, not having the child support contract, it's virtually impossible to keep an assistant. People don't really understand what the county attorney does. Mr. Axon and I had this conversation years ago. He told me, he said, I didn't realize that what all the county attorney does, but the county attorney is 24/7. It's not like the sheriff, every call you go out, but, it was many a night at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm walking the block over to the office to meet with the state police to do a search warrant or do stuff. And then I'm supposed to be in court at 9 o'clock, and, it would be handy and nice to have assistant to help with all of that. So I do have sympathy for that. But, you also know when you sign up for the job that that's what it pays. It's not like it was his first term, it's his second term. But, it put a smile on my face, though, because people really don't, it's hard to understand what the county attorney does because people don't see it. But Brian Newman was my assistant. We went to the prosecutor's conference, and at the prosecutor's conference, we had a parade of people come through, like the Secretary of State. So when the county clerk has election training for all the poll people working the polls, the county attorney's supposed to be there. The county attorney's supposed to be there when they do this other thing, or when they open this up. And so there were all these demands. And so when she left the stage, Brian goes, do you do that? I'm like, yeah, I do that. That's my job. Then you have child fatality team. So if you have a person under the age of 21 who dies, it's considered not natural. So they're supposed to be, and the coroner's in charge of this, to set up a review for that. We don't have a lot of children die, but we had those meetings. And Brian goes, do you do that? I'm like, yeah, I do that. Then you have sexual abuse. So you got multidisciplinary task force meetings where once a month you have a meeting with all the social workers, and the child advocacy group facilitates it. They prepare all the paperwork, thank God. Otherwise, the county attorney would have to do that. So it was worth me going to the meeting just to get somebody else to be responsible. And they were always calling me and saying, hey, we need this from you. And I'm like, okay, whatever you need. But they walked off the stage, and Brian goes, do you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I do that. He goes, he's my assistant. He goes, I had no idea you were doing all that. So it's human nature to want more money. And being county attorney, and of course it's poor old pitiful, but it's not the easiest of jobs. It's political, You get after people and make people mad. You do things, you have people come into your office and say, Taylor Jones punched me in the nose. And so, okay, you sit down, and I would take a private complaint. He does not, and he is correct. You should not. Because if the police don't think enough about it, then I shouldn't be taking complaints. But I also learned that just because I take a complaint doesn't mean it has to get served. Or just because I take a complaint doesn't mean I'm not going to work it out immediately when we get to court. But it'll send a message, And so what happens is tomorrow Taylor Jones comes in my office and says, well, that's not true. He punched me. You got me arrested, and I had to bail out of jail. And so what I learned from that was I didn't need to have Taylor Jones arrested. I didn't need to ask for that. And then the guy gets mad and says, well, he hit me and you didn't do, I'm like, okay, well, tomorrow he's going to come in here and he's going to want a warrant. So if we arrest him, then you're going to be arrested too, and then we'll figure it out when we get, no, I don't, So being county attorney in a small town is a lot about stuff like that. My dad told me there are 3 things that people will fight you to the death over: their line fence, their child, or their dog. And if you're really lucky, you can get all 3 of them in one situation. You know, somebody's fence is bad, the dog comes over and bites the kid on the playground. You know? So he gets, the county attorney, the perk for being county attorney is you get to have a private practice. So if you have a personal injury practice or some other kind of practice, the problem with that is that you're so busy doing the county attorney thing that it's hard to have time to do all that other stuff.
Still got to have, comes back to you got to have a good assistant.
Well, you need good office people too. The county attorney, they give you one 32-hour-a-week person. That would be Sally Haddix in our office, and I did it for 20 years. So Sally did it for 20 years, and when I quit, she quit, and she was retirement age, and she has a retirement out of it. But it was only 32 hours a week, and it was at a set salary, which wasn't near enough.
Yeah.
The county attorney, I will tell you this: the county attorney handles a lot of money. We had a bad check program, and Sally took care of that, and it's very trustworthy. So when somebody brings in cash to pay off a bad check at the IGA or whatever, somebody's got to keep track of that, and it's a pain. The bad check program has gone away because checks have gone away, so it's progress. But about the time that went away, the legislature, in order to help prosecutors, gave us the ability to have what they call a county attorney traffic safety program. And we contract with somebody and they do an online program. So Henry gets a speeding ticket, and I'm trying to help him out, but he's already had one run in 2 weeks ago. I'm not really in the give you a break business, because I didn't really want to argue with people about speeding tickets. But we came up with this compromise. It's not traffic school, because traffic school is still an option, but it's online. It costs nearly $200, so it hurts. But you don't have a conviction, you don't get points, it's not a moving violation. Insurance isn't affected. So it's kind of I'll give you something but not everything kind of position. But we got $50 a ticket. And my dad would tell you that's like letting the foxes watch the hens. So the county attorney can refer everybody to the traffic safety program and make $50 a pop, or whatever the going rate is now. But that's what it was for us. When I turned over the money, there's also bad.
So the county attorney actually collects the $50 for referring someone?
The money is actually paid into a special account in the bank, and then I'm not sure exactly who divides it up, but the service provider, let's say that it's $200 or $225. The county clerk got $25, or the circuit clerk. The clerk's office got money. The county attorney got money, and the provider, the people that actually did the online service.
All that came out of the 50?
Out of the $200 or whatever. So, and we did so many of those that when I went out of office at the end of 2003, I turned over $40,000 in an account to Mr. Axon, because I can't take it. It wasn't my money, and it was the county attorney money. But I was going to tell you, there's one other fund pool of money it's the delinquent taxes. The county attorney has a contract with the revenue cabinet to collect delinquent taxes. So you're probably aware of this. So you can go in middle of July, so maybe this week even, the tax bills will move from the county sheriff's office to the county clerk's office. And they call that, it's always called, that's the tax sale. So basically, what's not purchased is transferred over and becomes a lien against the real estate in the county clerk's office, where the deeds and the mortgages are. But what's happened is over the last 30 years, their third parties have come in and they buy. So if Zach Jones doesn't pay his taxes, and he's just on hard times, we're pretty confident, it's a nice house and he's going to pay his taxes. So they'll buy your taxes, and it's a 12% where else can you invest your money and get a 12% return on your money, pretty much guaranteed? So, I mean, are you aware of people that do that?
I've done it myself a few
Yeah.
times. Not to collect the 12% though. I was doing it
Yeah.
years ago. Wow, I mean,
We talked about
if I'd
business
had
opportunities.
if I'd had the money to invest for the 12%, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
so. But at the time when I was doing it, it was several years ago, and I was doing it to force abandoned properties to sell
Exactly.
that I wanted to purchase the property, and I couldn't get a bank to deal with me, or the people, I couldn't find them.
Right.
They were abandoned, so I used the delinquent tax bills to force them to sell so that I could buy them.
And that's one of the purposes of the delinquent taxes, is to take abandoned property and put it back into circulation through that process. But the county attorney's supposed to do all that, but these third parties making those purchases sure make it a lot easier. And when somebody pays that, there's a percentage of that comes to the county attorney to help offset his expenses. And I think the first year I did it, I probably got about $16,000 or
So
so.
there's a lot of revenue streams that come
Right.
with the county attorney.
Yeah. And then one of the first things they tell you when you become county attorney is, don't worry about audits because you'll never get audited. County attorneys never get audited. I'm like, okay.
So,
Anyway,
in summary,
well, you got I think the coroner also asked for more money, you know, and I mean, everybody, I'm sure the sheriff would love to have more money.
Yeah, you can only get told no. I mean,
Right.
you can't blame them for asking for more money, but
Yeah, I have to stick with the. You knew what the job paid when you ran for it. If it's not enough, step aside, and we'll see if somebody else wants
Well,
to fill that position for that money.
I think it was discussed that there is a very limited time frame that they can ask for a raise.
yeah, that's,
it has to be. What was it? Within a certain amount of
It's gotta be
time
like in
before
the
the
month of May or
election. It's got to be on an election year.
do you know that
The
answer?
only thing
Not
is,
off the
it's
top of my head, but I know for like council members or magistrates, they cannot, come into office and change their
Yeah.
pay. So they would be changing it for the next.
yeah. They said it had to be on an election year. Within a certain time frame before the election, but my thought on that was it should be on the election year before the filing deadline,
Yeah,
so that,
that would
someone
make
else,
way too much sense
so
for
that
government.
someone else could have the opportunity to say, "I'll do the job for what it's paying now."
What could be and should be are two different.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh,
Spike,
wow, we've gone 2 hours. I apologize. I could talk.
no, it's a good conversation. That's what
This
happens.
gonna have to be part one. We'll have you back on.
Yeah, have to have you back. I do have one other thing though. This is how we wind down. Everybody gets their chance for their one last thing. And I apologize because I usually try to research a little better anything I'm going to ask about. I noticed you made a Facebook post recently about rural hospitals.
Yes.
And there was something that post pertained to, a new tax, a new something that was going to affect the viability of rural hospitals. I may be totally off base in my question there, but can you give us some insight as to what you were talking about there?
I think it's tied into the big beautiful bill because I think there's built-in cuts to Medicaid, and I'm on the board. I know before we got on here, I'm on the board as a Gallatin County representative on the Carroll County Memorial Hospital, and it is a rural hospital. And every month we have meetings, and one of the financials that we get is like cash on hand. How many months or how many days cash on hand do we have? So if the money flow stops, how many days can we stay open? And it's been as high as 110 days. It's been as low as less than 10.
Oh, gosh.
Right. And lately it's probably in the 50, 60 range. And it's been going down. I will say COVID and the money that came to help with COVID expenses amazingly helped the hospital. And so the hospital has been able to put actually a couple $1 million back on CDs and draw some interest and kind of breathe. But meanwhile, the MRI machine goes down. Just the magnet, to replace the magnet, was estimated at $800,000. The new MRI machine was, and this is a refurbished machine, is like $1.4 million. So
I didn't even realize they did MRIs in Carrollton.
they do. They do a lot of things in Carrollton that people don't realize, but they sleep doctors, and we're working on trying to get an OB/GYN to come. They won't deliver the babies there, but you can see the doctor there, probably it'd be in LaGrange or Louisville. Because everything, you notice, if you grew up here, you notice we're an area code different from Carroll County. And everything, Carroll County is kind of turned and looks towards Louisville. Everything Gallatin looks this way. So it's hard to imagine, like if you were sick and it's just as close to go to Florence, or maybe closer, depending on where in Gallatin County, if you're up on the north end. But I told you off the record is I think it has a reputation, a Band-Aid station or whatever, and it's the problem is that the community benefits from it being there. It's better for us to have it there than not have it there. It's important to industry, like Nucor and NAS. We're working with NAS to try to set up a outpatient. We actually, at some point, I believe we may have it right now, where we have a provider, a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant or something, somebody at the location on a facility that they provide, and they pay for that service, but we provide it. So, but the reason I posted that is because we just talked about if the pay raise should have been before the filing deadline. Well, this is the Medicaid cuts will not actually be felt by anybody until after the midterm elections.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And so what that was a campaign literature, and it coincides with the other literature that we've been given, is that the hospital is very concerned, I would almost say afraid, about what's going to happen over the next year or two with the finances at the hospital. It's hard to compete. It's hard to hire a doctor. They want to be in Louisville. They want to be in Cincinnati. They don't want to be in Carroll County. But people in Carroll County, people in rural communities need doctors too. And it's okay, I guess. We all can jump in the car and run like hell to get to the doctor. But anyway, I put it on there because of that. The purpose of that is that this is not going to be felt until after the election.
Yeah.
So the election, those votes that they did last summer will not have an effect. Our congressman is out anyway, so we're getting removed in one way or the other.
Carroll County has an urgent care too, don't they?
I do not think so.
Do they not have one?
They did have one at one time, and we have what's called a walk-in clinic.
So isn't there something there like around the veterinarian or something there? Is that an urgent care or what is that?
It's a DaVita or whatever dialysis place.
Is that what it is? Dialysis? Okay.
I do think it did used to be
Yeah,
urgent care, but now it's dialysis.
Trimble County, the county judge from Trimble County is also on the board, and the Carroll County's hospital is working with the Trimble County government to put an urgent care in, I guess, Bedford. Milton is right across the river from Madison. Madison has a hospital, but the urgent care is going to be a joint effort between Trimble County government and Carroll County Hospital. We already have what we call a family, it's a family clinic. Carroll County has a family clinic on Courthouse Square here. It's kind of well hidden. It's in behind the diner. It's by JR's business there on the west side. But anyway, it's a Carroll County family clinic, and my mother went there. Actually, one of the beautiful things about what they're providing out of there right now is my mother was 93 years old, and she would be having trouble, and we'd call to make an appointment, and they would actually come to the house and make a house
that's
call.
nice.
They still do that?
Yeah, they do. They do. That's Angie Harmon is the nurse practitioner, and I don't know who the doctor. Yap was the doctor in Trimble, but he's not with the hospital anymore. So, they got an award for that because it's a rural service, and They got recognized
Not,
for
not
their
many people doing house calls anymore. in
no,
that
no,
field.
Unless it's over Zoom.
right with a telehealth.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted, you said something about it. If you had a heart attack, Carroll County Hospital has the emergency room. They have received awards from the American Heart Association for how they're handling those, and they have a tendency to stabilize things and transfer. But they have in had services, they have swing beds. I didn't know what swing beds are, but swing beds are like if you are in the hospital. My mother had back issues and she was in the hospital and she needed to go either to nursing home or have physical therapy or whatever. The hospital has those services. So they put her in what they call a swing bed, which is a transitional thing. And it's the same as if she had been transferred to Gallatin Healthcare for rehabilitation. So we have really worked, we've improved our rooms on that and upgraded everything so that we can provide more. Because not every hospital gets to do that, but the rural, we qualify because of the location and the makeup of the population. So many of our people are Medicaid. So that's why the big, beautiful bill and these are concerns is that we have so many people that are dependent on that. And
what percentage would you call that?
Oh, wow. I want to say 70 or 80%, but I think it's even higher than that.
I thought you were going to say 40, and I was going to say that's big. 70 or 80. Or
No. It's yeah. No, well, think about it, because I mean, Nucor, you probably have health insurance. I hope you have health insurance. I have health insurance. So I'm not on Medicaid. A few months I get to be on Medicare, but that's a different program. Medicaid is the program that helps people. Actually, my daughter has gone on Medicaid. She's a student in medical school in Pikeville, and she's now 26, so she can't be on my insurance anymore. She's in school, and she doesn't have any income, so she qualifies. So the government, I don't know whether she'll be affected by that or not, but, it's there for people who need it. Are they deadbeats? I don't think so. There probably is a percentage of people who take advantage. Even in the farming community, there's people that take advantage of,
absolutely.
And abuse things. So that doesn't make everybody a bad guy, though. But anyway, thank you for asking. I'm a big believer in the hospital. It's an amazing world to learn. I know your wife's working there.
Yeah.
There was a announcement about that. I shared that.
I saw your share.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of her. Hope you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
She went to Trancey too.
Yeah.
Get that plug in.
Yeah. Well, guys,
I would like to say this. I don't know what possesses you all to do this, and I hope people listen. If they're working in the kitchen or whatever they're doing, I think it's worth listening and learning. Not that I have much to teach, but I learned a lot from Kyle Kelly. And I think just being interested, I do think the world would be a better place if more people participated. So if more people took a turn at city councils and school boards, because it's easy to sit back and complain. It's hard to get up front and try to do something.
Well,
I admire your dad for doing what he's doing.
I think to answer your question, Spike, a lot of what has motivated us to have this show is if people are going to have a gripe, it needs to be as educated of a gripe as it possibly can be. Or if they're going to have a compliment, it needs to be an educated compliment. And when it comes to local elections, when it comes to your position on a data center, when it comes to your position on an airport or whatever you might have, the people deserve to know. And in a rural area, there's not a lot of information. So I think that would be our motivation, and I hope we're trying. So
I would say next airport board meeting is 2 weeks from today. It's at 6:00. Right now, we're in limbo because we're not sure. This is the first time we're going to have one in the evening, and the library closes at 7. We typically have them at the library. So until further notice, it would be at the library, but we'd have to hurry up and be done by 7. But we have 2 meetings a month, a regular meeting, which we can vote and do things. The second one, we call it a working meeting, where we talk about where we are and what we need to be doing.
Are those open to the public?
They're absolutely open to the public.
How many people are on the airport board?
5. Bill LeGrand, Paula Lillard, Wayne Rassman, Brent Brown, myself, and a fellow named Clint Graham, who is with Nucor. And he's been a new addition. It's been very good. He came in when he was first on the board. He said he met his new neighbor, and his new neighbor is the new director of CVG. So he just happens to be next door to the.
Yeah.
There you go.
But his son's a pilot, and I think he has some knowledge. Britt is the only pilot that we have that's on the board. And I wish I knew more. I think I'm there not because of my knowledge as a pilot, just.
You know, for legal reasons.
Yeah. I hope there's a reason. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming
Well,
on.
Spike, we sure appreciate you coming.
Yeah. That's a good
Yes.
conversation.
This might be our longest
I'm sorry.
one yet. Have we had any go
My
this long?
family will not be surprised to hear that.
All right. Well, here we go.